You're welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the Polity, a program that dwells on unfolding political events within the country and from many parts of the world. My name is Maucauley Hunohashi. Joining me in the studio is Mr. John Okoro. John Okoro is a media personality and is a regular face on the Polity. John, you are welcome to the Polity.
Thank you.
Today we are focusing our attention on, the outpouring of agitation for state creation. We have 6 geopolitical zones in the country, and Northwest zone has 7 states, and then Northeast zone has 6, North Central has 6, South has 6, and the Southwest has 6. But only the Southeastern zone, geopolitical zone of the country, has 5 states, and agitation for state creation has been, coming in from that particular zone. The first one, I may recall, about 3 weeks ago, was by a member of the House of Representatives, Ikenga Okochinyere, who is agitating, and he even passed a bill. The bill has passed first reading, during plenary at the floor of the Green Chamber, where he's pushing for the creation of Olu State. And now, on Tuesday, there is also a push for the creation of ATT State, ATT, ETITI. And then there's also a push for the creation of Anyuma State and Adada State, all coming from the same zone. Take us through historical journey of where we started from and how we arrived at this perceived inequality when it comes to states in the country.
Well, if I understand what you mean to be the evolution of the structure of governance in Nigeria from the beginning, right? Up to the point of having the structures that we call states today. Well, if you go back to, let's start from 1914, basically.
Okay, you're talking about the
amalgamation, yeah, because that is the official takeoff of the country or Nigeria. The Federation of Nigeria. Yeah. And it's also interesting to understand that at that point it was a colonial era, and the colonials dominated government. However, we know that from 1914, when Sir Frederick, later Lord Lugard, was the Governor General, that the structure of governance then was known as the Nigerian Council. That's what they called it. And basically, it was dominated by the British colonial masters. Then with some of our traditional rulers from across the country, being given some ex-official positions on the council. Yeah. However, years later, with the constitutional development of Nigeria that began around 1922 with the Clifford Constitution, that Nigerian Council was also changed to what they call the Legislative Council, whereby more seats were also created for Africans, from across different zones of the country, from the Old Rivers Province, from Oyo Province, from the Southern Province, and also from the Northern Province, about 6 extra seats. And that was the system using that what they call the Legislative Council of the Clifford Constitution. Then, come 1946, where we had another constitution, which was the one we now call the Richards Constitution. Now, it was the Richards Constitution that now created the regions, created the northern region, then you had the western region, and then the eastern region. That's how the country was now governed within the region. But that the regions didn't actually have real powers. The regional government, as it were, or the regional assemblies, didn't have real powers from that 1946, but they were there. However, because of that, the next constitution of McPherson, which was in 1951, then still retained the regions, but now gave the regions more powers, legislative powers, appropriation powers. In fact, it was the very first road to self-governance. All right. However, when we continued and even into independence in 1960, we still maintained the regional system. 3 regions. And then, in 1964, the Midwestern region was created, being the very first region that was created based on what they call plebiscites or referendum. The people actually said we needed this, and they came out, and then it now came. So by 1964, we now had 4 regions: the northern region in Kaduna, the headquarters; the western region in Ibadan, the headquarters; and then the eastern region in Enugu, the headquarters; and then the midwestern region with Benin as the headquarters. However, with the incursion of the military into government or into politics in 1966, and by the instruments of Decree 34 by the first military head of state, the late General Aguiyi Ironsi, by that decree number 34, the regions came to an end, and then Nigeria became a unitary state. But you know what happened during that period? Then there was a counter coup that led to the death of Ironsi. Then in came Yakubu Gowon. So by 1967, you know, now, but the most important thing here is that at that moment in time, there were lots of agitations, basically from people who felt that there were minorities within the regions. You remember, even in the early 1960s, there was a riot in Benue State, the TV riots, you know, and it was all about agitation. In fact, it was actually that TV riots that actually led to the creation of what we call mobile police today in Nigeria. And you know, so within those regions, there were people who felt that they were being marginalized. So when the regions came to an end in 1966 with the Decree 34, you know, the voices calling for, would I call it creating more administrative spaces to allow other people, to minorities, to have a say in government, or they have a say in their own destiny, became very loud. That now led to the creation of states that began in 1967 under the Gowon's administration. So the very first number of states that were created, we had 12 states created by Gowon. Then Gowon now left, and then in came the late General Murtala Mohammed. Murtala also created more states to add to the 12, bringing the number of states to 19 states. As of the time Murtala died in 1976, he left Nigeria with 19 states. Now, between that period, the military now left. We had the civilian administration, democracy started again, civil rule returned in 1979, and then it was truncated again towards the end of 1983. So from 1984 all the way, it was military government. Then when General Babangida came to power in 1985, in 1987, Babangida created 2 more states. Okay. That is, from the old Cross River State, he created Akwa Ibom State. Then from the old Kaduna State, he created Katsina States. So bringing the number of states in Nigeria in 1987 to 21 states. That's Babangida. Then we continued until in 1991, you know, just when Babangida was in the midst of the transition program, Babangida created 9 more states to bring the total number of states in Nigeria to 30 states. Okay. Then, when Babangida left the interim government, then the late General Abacha came to power, and then in 1st of October 1996, Abacha created 6 more additional states, bringing the total to 36 states. And that's how we are being up to now. And eventually, almost all the states that were created in this country, starting from 1967, we are all created by the military. All of them. All created by the military.
The military created those
all the states.
Were the reasons based on viability, or for political?
They were more of political. And it also came, as I said earlier, as a result of agitation from groups. You know, when different people were grouped together, and so if you had people that were dominant, like a group, ethnic group that were dominant within these states, at the time the minorities will start to claim that the majorities have been dominating them, leading to the creation of more states. Like in the case of Cross River, you have the BBOs, you have the EFICs, you understand, and the rest of them. You know, the BBOs now going to Akwa Ibom State. In the case of River State, in the River State you have many multiple ethnic groups, but they have to create Bayelsa State, which is almost purely 90% an Ijaw state. You understand me? So that was it was actually more political. And as we returned to democracy in 1999, there had been, in fact, at the time, the National Assembly received so many, requests for state creation that were, if all the states were created, maybe Nigeria would have been having over more than 100 states, as it were.
More than the United States.
I'm telling you,
50
states. So, but the point is that to create a state within this setting of democratic setting that we have now, because you have to go to the National Assembly. Afterwards, it has to go round again to all the houses of assembly across the country for it to become law. So that's why it hasn't been easy to create more states, because the military, they rule by fiat. So they can wake up in the morning and say, today, we are creating a state here, and it becomes law. There's no debate. But to bring out a state within the democratic system is going to be a little bit more difficult. That's why for 25 years now, the agitation to create more states, it's not just only in the Southeast. I know that the Southeastern own has always been louder because of the perceived inequality in terms of the number of states, being the smallest in terms of 5 states alone, where others have 6 and others have 7. But the fact remains that across the country, generally, there has been this agitation to create states across the country. It's not just only in the Southeast.
There's also agitation in the Southwest for the creation of additional state, and they call it Ogun state.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. It's all over. It's all over. Even in Benue State at that point, when David Mark in Adamawa State, all over, if you actually go through the catalogue of the number of states, proposed states across the country, like I said, if you put all of them out and all of them become states, we are going to have more than 100 states in the country.
What do you think is the hidden reason that is? Is there any hidden reason that is pushing for?
It's also political. It's about political participation and also sharing the wealth of the nation.
I've listened to Ogochinyere where he put up an argument that if Olu State is created, it will accord his constituencies, his federal constituencies, that's Olu North and Olu South, the status of senatorial,
I understand. That's why I said that it's all about political, even during the military, when these states were created, in many instances, the elites, the political elites of that era, and some other top shots within that state were the ones who actually collaborated with the military to say, okay, we want this state. And even in terms of where the capital will be, was also political. That's why in some states you have some capitals, people will say, no, this capital should have been elsewhere. But simply because maybe somebody of importance actually hails from the place that became the capital. So all, like in politics, about the first thing in politics is about self-interest. Like you mentioned, it's self-interest. That's the first thing in politics, is self-interest. Any person who's stepping out to become a politician is going there, first of all, because of his personal interest. Then afterwards, we can talk about public service. So all these years, when it comes to creation of states in Nigeria, it has only been about what we gain out of it, what is in it for us. It's like you see the way it is today in the country. Once somebody becomes a governor, you have access to the control of the states completely in every aspect, both in the social political, in the financial aspect of that state. So when most people feel that, okay, if we can also get our own states, we can as well enjoy and participate in these goodies.
Do you share the view, John? Do you share the view that some of the regions are underdeveloped because they are not at par? In terms of number of states, they are not at par with others.
No. It isn't so. That perception that because even the issue of the region, as it were, the geopolitical region, as it were, from the time, yes, we know that during the time of regionalism in Nigeria, that it was based on that the regions were created out of maybe geographical affinity, of people who were closely knit. It might not really be homogeneous, but in terms of geographical affinity, people who were, geographically contiguous. That's the word I'm looking for. Those who were geographically contiguous. That then, before you now talk about even the ethnic affiliations, because in many regions there were multiple ethnic groups in the regions. You understand, at that point in time. So it wasn't really because of ethnicity. It was mainly about the contiguous nature of the geopolitics of the era. You understand. So, but today, as it were, whether as far as Nigeria is made up of states, every state as it is a semi-autonomous entity of its own. Because as we speak today, the governors have power. If you look at the legislative and the concurrent and the residual list, you understand? You know, the concurrent, the residual list, where you have the governors, the states, and the concurrent list is where you have the states and the federal government sharing responsibilities. You find out that today there are some things that the president will not have power to do over the states. That tells you that the states are actually semi-autonomous in terms of their ability to carry on with development within the states. So the issue of saying because we are in a region as a group and we are 5 states, for the sake of balance, I think it's always advised that this thing should be done. But however, in terms of development, it has nothing to do with development.
Okay.
Because each state...
You talked about balance.
Yes.
And that brings me to the issue of a perceived lack of, common ground by those agitating from the lawmakers agitating for or pushing for the creation of additional states from the southeast. Because you are talking about Olu. You are talking about Olu. You're talking about Olu. You're talking about Anyoma. You're talking about Adada. And then Adada, you're not talking about Etiti. You're talking about 4 additional states. So if hypothetically they happen to succeed, that will, raise the number of states in that region to 9. So it will surpass other existing regions.
Yes, I think, like you said, there must be some kind of unism in terms of presenting that agitation before the National Assembly. I don't know whether they have reached that conclusion. Hence, this new bill that was read for the first time, the first reading, it passed through first reading yesterday on the floor of the House of Representatives. Whether there's now this agreement that we are going to come, we are going to approach this state creation thing as one body, as a one political bloc, rather than people having ideas. Because if you look at it, you understand, because despite the fact that I know that that may have also contributed to some extent, because when we don't have that clarity of purpose, what we want, do you want 4 states in the southeast or you want additional states in the southeast? If it's one additional state in the southeast that the region is asking for, I think there should be a unity of purpose in terms of presenting that bill or the agitation, as it were, to the National Assembly, and then lobby it, follow it up, and then talk to those who you need to talk to, and then if eventually it is passed concurrently within the 2 chambers of the parliament, then you now take it to the states, where it will go through the same process within the different houses of assembly across the states. But if you now have different interests, because when you talk about the Etiti, or when you talk about say Adada, you are dealing more with the Enugu, the northern Igbo land, which comprises mostly of the Nsukka axis. Then also there are some adjoining communities in Anambra State too that are very close to each other within the Nsukka axis. Then the Adada is the western Igbos who are now in Delta State. I understand that the Anyoma people, which is today make up the northern senatorial zone of Delta State. You understand? So then the Olo, the Titi, they are also around the Imo axis and the rest of them. So you could see the disparities, if I call them. So there must be a unity of purpose, clarity of purpose. People must have the vision, okay, we want this, let's go for it. But the fact remains that beyond that, for state creation to pass through the National Assembly and become a law and accepted by the president is, at least in the past 25 years, there have been attempts made, which didn't work. There was an attempt in 2018. So I don't know how it's going to be, unless there's a different approach that the people who are proposing this will follow. But if they follow the same approach as it has been all over the last 25 years, then it might be difficult to really get to see this bill passing through and making it to becoming a law.
Now, if this push for additional state creation, passes through to the third reading and is eventually assented to, the number of local governments, we currently have 774 local governments. And I understand that Olu is talking about, expected number of local government that we're about 29, and their number is about 11. Do you worry that the number of local government will be too many for us in the country? Or do you believe that it will make governance make governance come closer to the people?
Well, I don't really know how they are going to do it in terms of dealing with the issue of local government with the new state. I think first thing first, if they get it, then anyway they will work together. Everything will work together. But the main problem here for me, Maucauley, is not even the number of states that we have in the country or the number of local governments. It's about viability of these entities. Because even with the current system that we have now, where we have about 36 states, then we have a federal capital territory that is administered by the federal government, it's difficult to even run the states. Very, very difficult to run the states today. Not that it is so difficult, but the political will by those who have been given the responsibility to run the state, governors and the rest of them, is lacking. And because of that, the states, are actually undergoing what I might call insolvency. If you go to many states today, the economy is there are non-existent. That is why everybody is trooping to the cities. Everybody is trooping to Abuja because almost nothing anywhere. I say nothing is happening in the states. Because even from the rural-urban drift, then now it is about even urban to urban drift as it is. Because before, if you look at the statistics earlier, before now, we used to have more people residing in the urban areas, or residing in the rural areas. Almost about 60% of Nigerians resided in the rural areas. But because of all this continuous erosion of the economy, of the value, of even the purchasing power of Nigerians, the living standard, it became so bad that people now had to move to the urban centers. Now the urban centers are domiciled in states. They're domiciled in different states across the country. But even now, within these urban centers, we are now moving from an urban center that we see as less viable to another urban center that we see as more viable. So we will now have urban to urban migration as it is today in this country. So, but if we have states that are working, states that are very viable, there are a lot of people who are elsewhere that are not supposed to be there. They should be in their states doing something reasonable. But today, if you are not within the industry of politics in the states, you might be nowhere. You might just find yourself just drifting into nothingness within the states. So that's the problem. So, but if you have that issue, by the time you create more states, we are talking about federal allocation. Every year, every month, the commissioners of finance across the 36 states will now converge on Abuja to come and collect their allocations for that month. Then they will return to the states to go and do what? Now, meanwhile, the IGR, both at the state level and the local government level, what are you doing with them? So now, if you now create more, now even at the time during the last minimum wage debate in 2019, many state governors were actually asking that the current allocation formula should be increased so that the states will have more allocations even than the federal government at the days, so that they can even pay about 24,000 naira as minimum wage. That was one of the requests in 2019. And even though they haven't said it this year during the current minimum wage debate, but I know that somehow, somewhere, very soon it will come up again. You depend on allocation, and every other thing. At the end of the day now, there's nothing, to account for, to say, okay, based on all these years of governance in the country, the citizens have gained this. Because when you talk about Nigeria, you're talking about states, you're not talking about Abuja. It's easier to live in Abuja where the president is very close. You are passing, you say, this is the gate to the villa. It's easy. And you think that the Abuja is Nigeria. No, Nigeria is made up of 36 states, and the citizens live in these states. That's where they reside. Okay. So if the current states, that's why, because some people like me say, let's return to regionalism, which I don't know how that will work.
That brings me to that question. John, over the weekend I was reading an article written by a prolific Nigerian writer where he did argue that politicians are in a state of confusion because the same politicians from amongst themselves are agitating for a reversal or a return to regionalism. Some are even saying we should go back to parliamentary system of government. Yet from amongst the same politicians, there are push for creation of additional states. He did argue that, Nigerian politicians seem to be in a state of confusion.
Yes, they should.
Do you agree with him?
Are we even supposed to be in a state of confusion if we actually know what you are doing? Not, because you must have a vision of where you're heading to. It's because of the visionlessness of the system that we find ourselves here. Because if we have a vision, we have a focus, we have a vision, we know where we are heading to. What are you going to be talking about? When the United States started, as 13 colonies, initially as British colonies, but when it was not time for them to come together, even though they were not, they were only related based on geography, but each state was an independent state of its own, only answerable to the colony, to the British crown. However, when it was now time for them to change, they agreed and they came together and said, okay, because we are together, because we are under the same crown, we can work together. And it took them a lot of time to iron out the agreement upon which they are going to live together as a single nation. And from that moment, when they came together and became a nation, they have been continuously advancing, having a focus. Even the Constitution, American Constitution, it's not more now you say they have been amending it, but they have not principally removed or changed or repealed the fundamentals of the system of the Constitution since almost how many years ago? I'm thinking about how many years ago. In fact, the first president of America, that is George Washington, was inaugurated in 1789. That was when you can actually take their history from 1789. Before then, everything that has to do with the Constitution had been taken care of. So they began with the Constitution. So you can say, okay, if you use 1789 as a starting point up to today, how many amendments? The only but the fundamentals of the Constitution still remain. They have focus, they know where they're heading to. Even when they had issues with the number of tenure that the president we have, they return to amend it so that there will not be confusion, because at least during the World War, Roosevelt had to go for 4 tenures because of the war convenience of the time. But they had to come on so that there will not be issues again about, okay, who will do, how many tenures will somebody do. So, but as a country, we are confused. From the parliamentary system of 1960 to 1966, military now came in and spent time, then they returned. When we came back in 1979, we now chose the Washington model, which is the presidential system of government. And in between, there was also another military interregnum. Then we returned in 1999, and we continue with the presidential system. Now somebody say, okay, some people say, okay, let us go back to parliament, let us go back to the church. It's not confusion. It's confusion now. We should be able to have a focus as a country, so that we will not find ourselves in the situation such as this. And that's why we are having all this agitation for state and all this thing, because there's confusion everywhere. We don't know, because if people are okay, whether you are living in a region, whether you are living in a province, whether you are living in a state, as far as you are okay as an individual, and there is at least the standard of living is okay and average for a citizen, who will bother about this? Yeah, because of the way things are, some people feel that, okay, the only way we can actually become viable is for us to have our own state. At the time, I had a friend who was going to contest for councillorship in the state. I was asking him, how come that I know that about 2 years ago or thereabouts that you also contested. He said yes, that this particular year now will be his turn. He said in the state they have agreed that it's going to be two years per councillor. Once you do 2 years, you go back, another person will come. You understand? So, and he is happy because at least it's a kind of, because it's a privilege that he has. So some people feel that, okay, if we now have states, more states for us, then we have access to the governance, have access to the governance structure, have access to the treasury, have access to everything, and then be good. It's not based on any national interest. It's based on basically for political interest and personal interest. You know, because if we have a system where people are actually living well in this country, I don't think anybody will be bothered about state creation. Even if you are living in a province, living in whatever, as far as you are okay with the system and you're okay, and the government gives you what you want, and you give back to the government what the government needs from you, then everything will be fine.
Before the agitation for additional state creation, gained prominence, particularly from the southeast, there has been agitation for the creation of Gurara state, particularly in Kaduna, in southern Kaduna,
Niger.
Southern parts of Kaduna and Niger, and then some parts of FCT, and it's precisely based on the perceived marginalization by certain section of the state, or that senatorial zone.
Yes.
But don't you fear that with this trend, there will be agitation for tribal states, or within regions?
Oh yes.
Particularly, you can come to Adama, Bachama people who say they want their own states.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why there's a need to.
Let's take this caller.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello. Good afternoon. You're our first caller today. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm fine. We are fine in the studio. This is the Polity. Your name and where you're calling from?
Okay, my name is Yusuf from Gombe.
Yusuf from Gombe. Make your contributions, please.
Yes, my contribution is the issue of creation of states.
Yes, go ahead.
I see it is uncalled for because Nigeria has numerous problems that need to be solved. We need to solve the problem that you have on the ground. Everywhere there is no peace, there is lack of food, lack of water, lack of electricity. We need to concentrate on the main things that will make Nigeria great.
Okay.
This is the issue of creation of state. Originally, I'm from Borno State, and we need the state in southern Borno. And it is necessary that you look at the gap, the distances from Biu to Maiduguri is almost about 250 kilometers. And if you look at it, you see the geographical location of the southern Borno can be reached as more than the part of the area those people that are asking for creation of state. We need more state in northern Nigeria than any other place because we have weather places, we have population, we have a lot of land available that the state need to be created.
Okay.
That's my take-off. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf. You see what I was talking about earlier on? This agitation has opened a new vista of conversation. This northerner, Yusuf from Gombe State, he said he's from southern Borno. They need more states. He even argued that, in fact, the north desire more states, more additional states than any other zone in the country because in the north they have the population, they have the land. That is his argument.
That's true, and that's the point we are making, that if that becomes the norm rather than the exception, like you said, it might get to a point where even people within clans, we start agitating for states. Because even as the point I was making earlier, if you look at the local government system, for example, what they do now is that they now rotate the councillorship across different communities. This one we do for a period, this one we do for another, so that I think we go around. Now, the essence of this kind of rotation isn't basically for development, it's about benefiting the people in kind. Yes, that's what it is, because it's not all about, because during the regional period, for example, I know that there were issues in some of the regions about minority rights and everything, but the fact remains that at least people got what they wanted in terms of development across the regions. You had competitions, and that time the regions, like somebody who called and he was measuring the distance, the last caller from southern Borno to Maiduguri, from Biu, for example, to Maiduguri, which is a very long distance. Okay, imagine the time when it was where Yobe State was part of Borno State. Imagine the time when it was the northeastern state. As a state of its own, comprising of what we know today.
6 states today.
Imagine that time. But you had coordination.
Yes.
You had coordination. You had, like we were talking about the British colonial administration. Even before 1914 or even afterwards, how did the British people govern the system, Nigeria? They had a system that was almost foolproof.
People argue that it is part of the evolution.
That's what I'm saying.
At that time, the population was not as explosive as it is
today.
That's
a fact. But the fact remains that the models can always work. what's important is that there is a way to do the right thing. It's not about until you bring states to everybody. I'm not saying that those who are agitating for states, they are wrong. But the point remains that based on the present circumstances that we have found ourselves in this country, where states are not even viable, states, pensioners, government workers, they are being owned arrears for months and for years as we speak now. There's a particular state that I know that for years they have never completely paid their workers their salary. They pay them based on pro rata or percentage kind of level. That's how they pay them. If they pay them 24% or 30% this month, maybe they will not pay them again for the next 3 months. Next time they will pay them 20%, and that's how these people are living. And they don't have any other thing to do except that work, and they must go to work. But they're not surviving from that work. So at a time like this, then you are not bringing more states. You see the problem. How are we going to fund these states? Because we always say that every state in this country has the ability to stand alone and take care of itself without even depending on allocations or from loans from anywhere. We always say
so. We always say that, yes.
But however, in reality, is it what we have on ground? So unless we have the kind of leaders who are ready, you understand, like you always love to mention Singapore.
Yes.
Singapore is a city-state,
yes,
created out of Malaysia. You see how little they are?
Yes.
You see how focused the leaders have been, and today they're not even a state. As in a state in a country, they are a city-state of its own, a country of its own. So if, for example, you say, okay, we have the kind of leaders who can actually turn around the fortunes of the state, and you say, okay, let us create more states to give access to governance, to give access to every other thing to people who are in the minority in the country. Will you see have the kind of leaders who will also say, okay, let us really, in the real sense of the word, turn around the fortunes of our people and make them at least, let their living standard be okay? Would you have something? No. Rather, if you create more states, the elites, the politicians who will have access to the wealth of these new states, we appropriate them this wealth to themselves. And the same people, the same poor people, the same ordinary people who are supposed to be the beneficiaries of this new state will still be the ones suffering. That's the situation.
Okay, you've earlier said that most of these agitations by the politicians are self-serving. And I've also listened to many people who say the politicians are grandstanding as ethnic jingoists so that they will be applauded by their people. Nothing short of that.
That is it. That's the point. That is just a kind of a sequel to my last statement.
Yes.
The elites, those who are of note, coming from different background, different political background, or even different ethnic groups, now they may succeed in appropriating these states. Maybe they might even use the name of the ethnic group to name the states. However, in practice, will they be able to also spread the wealth to the people who they use now as their backbone? Would they be? The answer is no, because we have seen this happening. When some of the current states were created, it was still the same argument.
Okay.
So the same argument. It was the same argument. Even when the very first 12 states were created in 1967 by Gowon, it was still the same argument. When we created more states in 1976 by Murtala Mohammed, it was the same argument. Let us bring governance to the people, closer to them. But as we speak today, how many years down the line are we bringing governance to the people? It's still the elites, the politicians who have access to the apparatus of states,
yes,
that are the ones that are enjoying, not the ordinary people.
You mentioned the fear of some politicians using their ethnic, name to name the state, to christen the state, and that brings me to the question of, in 1993, when Babangida was creating Taraba State, carving Taraba State out of the then Gongola State.
The then Gongola State, yes.
It was named after the progenitor of the Fulani Emirate, that's Modibo Adama.
Modibo Adama, yes.
Yes, Modibo Adama, that's where you have the name Adamawa.
Adamawa State, exactly,
and then there are arguments by ethnic nationalities who converge on Yola on Saturday to have a massive, summit where we are talking about, restitution and extricating themselves, so to speak, from the perceived shackles of dominance by the by one ethnic nationality, seem to be dominating the other. Adamawa comprises about, it has about 85 ethnic nationalities, and the Fulanis are one. And then the name of the state is christened after the Fulani, the progenitor of the Adama Emirate, Modibo Adama. So there are arguments, like you said, and then there are arguments and counter-arguments with regards to that, and then there are agitations for a reversal to Gongola state. So that's the fear you entertain.
Yes, that is the point, because as we continue to move within the same trajectory in the name of state creation and everything, you will have this kind of thing happening. And it's not new. It is not new. It's not new. There's nothing new about people complaining about dominance by maybe a larger or more influential ethnic group. It's not new within their states. It's not new in this country. It has been there. Now, I told you that in 1963 or thereabout, where you had the TV riots,
yes, the TV riots
within the northern region, it was all about domination and everything. Now, across all the regions, even then, it was the same thing. That now led to creation of states. Okay, let us create states in order to give these people a voice and everything. But my main point here is that whether you christen the state with any name, because there will always be a link between the state's name and what is obtainable within the state. In some places, they use like maybe national plants, rivers, and the rest of them. Even people, even names. Like in the United States, you have Pennsylvania. It's named after somebody. It's the name of someone. Pennsylvania is the name of someone. The founder William Penn, to be precise. Who founded the state. You understand, or at least who began the process, of the first people settling there, and the rest of them. So there's nothing wrong with naming states, with whatever name you want to. But the fact remains that beyond the aesthetics of these names and everything, what is in there for the people? That's the main thing.
What is in there for the people?
Even as Nigeria is currently structured, if the people are aware that they have a serious stake in the system, they will not bother about state creation and everything. They will not bother. Nobody will bother about state. The agitation for state creation is simply because people feel that, we have to participate in this jamboree, that is going on. That is the main thing, not about any other thing. Not because they really care about, and the people who champion, like we're talking about the states now, we know that, like in the Southeast, for example, that we mentioned, the bill is out there now. At least it's gone through first reading. Now, who are the ones sponsoring it? The elites. The political elites are the ones. They're the ones sponsoring it. And looking out for another person who is out there, who is going about his or her own everyday business, where it would be a thing of maybe pride, general pride, to say, okay, in our own region now we now have 6 states. The Nigerian state has recognized us. But beyond that, if the states even come, or the state come as it were, what will be in there for the people? That's what matters. Is there going to be a kind of fundamental change from what you have today, where the states are now being appropriated by the political class and their cronies, while the ordinary people are just left out there in the cold?
Okay, pushing for Anioma State, I've listened to Senator Nate Nwanko, who adduced so many reasons for the agitation for the creation of Anioma State from Southeast, where he mentioned that the state is blessed with mineral endowments, including oil. Is that enough?
The Anioma State in Delta North.
Yes, in Delta North.
Well, at the time, yes, because they have local governments within the Anioma states, in the Anioma area in Delta North. In fact, the whole of Delta North, that they call it Anioma. Because I think they are predominantly or also in a way we call them the Western Igbos,
or Delta Igbo.
Or Delta Igbo, or Western Igbos, or Delta Igbos, exactly. So at the time, the agitation was based on marginalization, based on the governorship of the state, because it was believed that maybe based on majority, that the central senatorial zone of the state produced more governors, especially Ibori, from Ibori in 1999. Then you have Uduagan coming. Is it not?
Uduaga
came. I know they're almost from, I think Uduaga is from the southern senatorial zone and the rest of them. So they felt that, okay, that if there is no kind of political arrangement within the states, within Delta states, that maybe the people from the senatorial zone will continue to dominate, mostly the Urobos, basically, because Ibori was an Urobo person, or he's an Urobo person rather, while Uduaga is an Ishekiri person, from the southern side of it. So the people from the north felt that, okay, because what they already do was that when they bring people from the central to become governors, then they will make somebody from the north deputy governor. So they felt that maybe these people might continue to dominate them. They needed something special. And somehow, he brought Ifeanyi Okowa, who became the first person from the Delta North since 1999 to become a governor in the state. And he did 8 years. And after 8 years now, the cycle has gone by and has gone back again to the Urobos. You understand? Currently now, Oboroweri Sheriff is an Urobo person. You understand? So, in states, these things happen. But however, if you now create an Anoma state, you now start seeing the division within the Western Igbos. Oh, this person is Oshimili. This one is Ika. This one is Iwanke. This within the same area. As it's happening around today, even across the whole states, even with the present condition and structure, even within states, the people that speak the same language, you have the same problem in the system there. So it's not just about all this and all this and all that. It's about having a structure where the citizens know that in this system, in the local government system, there's something there for us. In the states, there's something for us. At the federal level, there's something for us. Not despite who is in power.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. That's the main thing. That is the position. That should be the position of Nigerians. Yes, if we can get more states, good. If they can fund it, there's nothing wrong with it. But beyond that, we must make sure that the citizens are the ones who are at the forefront, not the politicians.
Okay.
In terms of benefiting from this.
Well, viewers, our telephone line is displayed on the screen. Please do call in so that you can share your views to make the program participatory. It is your show. We're going to take a short break. When we return, John Okoro will remain with me in the studio to continue with the conversation. Please don't go anywhere. Welcome back. And if you're just joining us, this is the Polity, where we're discussing agitations for additional creations, agitations for additional state creation in the country, beg your pardon. And with me still in the studio is Mr. John Okoro. John Okoro, thank you for remaining with us in the studio.
It's a pleasure.
And our telephone line is displayed on the screen. Viewers can call to make the program conversational by making their comments. It is your show. Please call in. John, before we went on that break, I wanted to ask you, creating a new state is like welcoming a newborn baby or buying a new car, because you're expected to provide a gamut of expectations for the newborn baby, which includes new clothing for the baby, beddings, blankets, coverage, nappies and diapers. Then you must provide food for the baby to see the baby grow to adulthood before you finally free the baby as an adult. State creation can be likened, in the same manner. Now, I use that as an analogy, but when you have a state, you must provide structure for civil service, you must provide for police, you must provide for security, you must provide for expectations of good governance that include agriculture, health, education, and whatnot to make life better. Now we are talking about state creation in the midst of economic crunch that we are witnessing as a country. What's your view on that?
That's true. That's true. It reflects exactly what I have been saying, that with the paucity of funds today in the country, where we are complaining about even revenue gap, deficits and everything within our budgeting system. If you even look at the budgets of states, only very few states that you could see that their budgets even cross the 1 trillion naira mark. It's always between this billion and the other billion. Now with it, And again, I also know that with the removal of fuel subsidy, there have been more money going to the states as well. But even beyond that, you know, can the nation fund, because like you mentioned, after all said and done, there must be a takeoff fund too. They're not going to start from somewhere, nowhere. There must be some money that will be on ground for the states to take off, to run some of these things that you mentioned, the civil service structure and other structures within the states. So who will foot that bill? Is it the federal government that have been complaining that even the budget is like you have almost about 10 trillion naira worth of budget deficit in 2024 budget. Then if you go to the states again, it's the same thing. You have to go borrowing in order to even do capital projects within the states. You have to go out borrowing across, both at the state level. Like when you look at the Nigerian debt stock of about 121 trillion naira, it's not just about the federal government.
We have a caller.
All right.
Hello, good afternoon. This is the Polity. You're welcome.
Hello, hello, Mr. Maucauley.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
How are you?
I am fine. We're fine in the studio. And you?
I'm very impressed with Mr. John.
Okay, thank you. He's hearing you.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's done justice. You've done justice time and again and again. Listening to you, I mean, you've just been teaching us what Nigeria is all about. But let me cut to the chase. I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
The issue of state creation has not been, I mean, it's just self-interest. People just sit down for whatever they can get, for me, myself, and I. And they've not, go to any of the states, pick randomly, and see what level of development has been since the states have been created. It's a shame. It's a shame. I do not support the creation of states, but if anything, let's see how we can develop what we have and extend this to the people who really need it. We have councillors, we have senators who just sit down in the federal capital. What are they doing? They have their constituencies where they can stay and run, administer, not to come to the center and just rabble-rouse and make noise and take money for their pockets. That's my contribution, please.
Where are you coming from? What's your name, sir?
I'm here in Abuja. My name is Joseph.
Okay, Joseph from Abuja. Thank you so much for your contribution.
It's all right.
Joseph.
Thank you.
Joseph, I agree with you 100%. You even uploaded your contributions. Now, let me ask you. Agitations from Southeast, they're pushing for the creation of about additional 4 states, isn't it?
At least officially one for now. The one that
for now. Let's assume they succeed in getting the 4 states. That will make it 9. So which means revenue accruing as it is now to the 5 states will be reduced because they have to share, the internally generated revenue with the additional states that are coming on board. And even they run cap in hand to Abuja to collect revenues accruing to the federal government through the the revenues that we get monthly. That will also reduce. Don't you think that's a very huge implication?
Exactly. That was the point I was even making before Joseph called. Looking at even the general revenue profile of the country, and then even at the state level, then our debt profile again, which also includes the debt from states. Again, the loans that the states took that are not paid. It's also part of the general national debt stock.
We have another caller.
All right.
All your thoughts there. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
This is the Polity. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm Mustafa from Maiduguri.
Okay, Musti, your contribution, please.
Well, the issue of state creation,
okay,
considering our predicament in Nigeria, is uncalled for.
Okay.
If we are looking for development, let us look for the creation of more local governments where the majority of the population are living. If you say you are going to create states, what have you done to the local government? Let's see how we can tackle this insecurity in Nigeria. Because only the tackling of that insecurity will now metamorphose to development in Nigeria.
Okay.
There's no way you can develop without tackling this insecurity in Nigeria. So if we want development, we want to, develop the country. Let us see the way we can, tackle this insecurity and thereby creating more local government in Nigeria, so that the creation of local government will now bring more development to the country.
Okay.
Not the creation of states.
Thank you, Mustafa.
Yes. Thank you.
Mustafa from Maiduguri. You quite agree with you, but on the other side, he said, instead of creating additional states, the country should create more local governments because they are closer to the people, and it will bring development closer to the people, and with that, insecurity will be tackled. What do you think?
Yeah, creating more government structures, political structures like more local governments may not actually bring government to the people closer, as we may perceive it. Rather, it will only create more political elites, and then maybe with more funds to play around with. Rather, because even the current local government system that we practice today, how has it helped? There has been a serious erosion of the local government system over the years, and today we see local governments as just mere appendages to the states. Years upon years, you don't have local government elections, you don't have anything. So even all the funds that come from the center are located to the local governments. In many instances, these monies are not where they are misappropriated. Hence, we're talking about salaries being owned people. The local governments, and even staff face the worst in terms of salary arrears and everything. So it's not just about creating more political structures. It's about strengthening the current structure that we have. You don't have to be, all the time, every moment. If, for example, like when you say you do have to cut off your nose, in order to spite your face, there is a question. So is it anytime we have anything, then we have to create something new to solve that particular problem? Anytime we have issues, we have to create, like we have the issue of insecurity now, then we have to create more local government in order to solve insecurity. No. What's wrong with the system we have now? Nothing, because the local government system has always been even the fulcrum, and the foundation of governance in the country. Personally, I grew up in the local government. I didn't leave my village until I went to secondary school. And everything I needed in the village was there, even to the point that the local governments even gave us loans, agricultural loans, to go and farm and pay back everything, the roads, water, everything. The local government provided it for us, when we were growing up. We didn't even have any need to go to the cities. In fact, because we were almost satisfied with the local government system. But today, can we say the same? So it's not about creating more structures, whether you call it state, whether you call it local government, or whatever you want to call it. It's about strengthening what we already have on ground, so that government, would benefit the people. Because at the end, the people are the end users of whatever government has to offer. So when it is the other way around, where the people are the ones who are now being sidelined, and then those in power, the political elites and those who have the opportunity, are the ones who are now enjoying the fruits of the land. So is that how we want to continue? The answer is no.
And I've listened to someone yesterday whose comment is, strictly at variance with what you just said. And his argument is that he used Niger State. And his argument is that Niger State has swath of, ungoverned land where, bandits use it for their business to thrive. For instance, if you carve out a state and include that part of Niger State that is largely ungoverned and has been taken over by bandits, and you provide infrastructure, we provide the presence of infrastructure, government there, it will take care of insecurity, don't you think so?
Well, the issue of ungoverned space might not be as a result of maybe not having a state or local government within the place where the states are ungoverned. Rather, I think it's a part of the gross negligence of our contemporary time. And it's not just only in Niger State, it's across the country. And even the places where the bandits reside, they're also human beings and communities. They reside among communities as it is. So it's not as if they just reside in some wastelands or in some forests or in some. They reside within communities, and those communities are under some kind of government structure, either as a ward within a local government and also part of a state. So the issue of ungoverned spaces across the country is not about whether we have to create more space, more political spaces in the system. It's about the gap in the system. It's about gap in the system. The gap is there, and it has always been there. And some of the problems we face today, especially around insecurity, is about the gap. It might not be a physical gap in terms of say we have this land, nobody's policy there, which is part of it. It's also about negligence. It's about not just bordering, about even giving preference, to some other things. You have a scale of preference in the economics. It's okay, as the governor of a state, what are those things that I should put as top priority? Number one is security. Yes, the governors might tell you, oh, we are not the chief security officers of our country. We don't have the apparatus of power like the police in our hands. But if you have the will there, you understand, like in many states, to say, my state, I'm not going to yield my state, any inch of my state, I'm not going to yield it to non-state actors, to use it as a launching ground to perpetrate criminality in the state. And you stand your ground. You will get help from everywhere, including from the federal government. But when people are not concerned about the truth remains that even today, in many of the places where you have issues of banditry, there are areas that for years have been neglected. There are rural places, there are remote places that you don't even have any sign of posts. That's why anytime you have communities being ransacked, one of the first lines you will hear from government is that we are going to build a barrack here, we are going to put a police post here. That's the first thing we hear, which means all this says you didn't remember these people to put police posts there for them until bandits now came and took over that place. And you now remember that, oh, we have to have a police post here now. So it's not just about this or about that, it's about people in government knowing what should be their priority. That's it. It's because Nigerians are neglected. Nigeria is neglected. Nigerians are neglected. Yeah. Even if you take away the issue of insecurity, even in the provision of amenities for a common Nigerian, today we have our common balance that we are everything, we are our own government. You provide water for yourself. You are supposed to have a water board that provides you with portable, clean drinking water. Yeah. But is it there? It's not there today.
And monies are appropriated for such.
Yes, it's not there. Ordinarily, if we are developed with the level of gas, natural gas we have in this country, every household, just like we have electricity, should have gas pipes in their homes where you can use to do everything in your house, including cooking. But is it there? Well, we keep on hearing that Nigeria has one of the highest deposits of natural gas in the country. But look at Western Europe. Where are they getting their gas from? They are piping gas all the way from Russia, to homes. All the homes in London, in Germany, everywhere, they are getting their gas piped from Russia, passing through Ukraine. That's people that are serious in development. You understand? So it's not just about you have to create states, you have to do this, that when you have a problem. Okay. Because
you're already agitated.
Okay, so I'm not agitating for state, mind you. For states. Yeah. So my agitation is for a different thing, for good governance.
Your demeanor has just changed.
Exactly, for good governance.
You are so sad that the comparison you are making with Europe, your demeanor changed.
Yeah, exactly. Because we are supposed to be better off as a people. Nigeria has no business, being classified as a poor nation, being classified as headquarters of poverty. We don't have any business with that. We don't. Over 64 years.
It's just embarrassing.
64 years.
Politicians embarrassed.
It's embarrassing. We go outside, we enjoy these things. Today, the new place of tourism is in the Arab world. You go to United Arab Emirates, Nigerians are trooping there. Nigerians are even owning part of the city of Dubai. They own part of it based on the investments.
By 1993, Dubai was a virgin land.
Exactly. So we go there, we enjoy what's going on. These are tiny countries, small countries that are like the whole of United Arab Emirates, including both Abu Dhabi, including Sharjah, including Dubai itself. Are they up to even the whole of the FCT?
They are not.
The territory of the FCT. They are not. The whole of the. But we see when we go there. We go there, we go and do what the Europe will call Dobale. for the system there. When we come back, we are saying, hey, do you know that they're using BMW 7 Series in Dubai as a taxi? And it sounds good. But these guys have worked hard. They have leaders who have visions. They know in the next 20 years, this is how we want our country to be. And they plan it, they work towards it.
Now, Joe, let me ask you. Nigeria is a country now. We don't even know our statistics, but we are said to be about 250, 270,
200 and something million.
200 something million. And then we have over 300 tribes or ethnic nationalities. Do you fear that this agitation will open floodgate of agitations from different regions, different tribes, and things like that? Hold on to that question. You can answer it after this call. No, we have lost the call. Go ahead.
You see, you can hardly see any country in this world that is homogeneous, where you have people that speak the same language. Even if you do, within the homogeneity, you are still going to see different groups within that homogeneity. You can't. That's why in many federal states like ours, there's always room for what they call self-determination, for different groups, to be given that space to run their own things their own way within the federal structure. You understand? And that has always been even the vision of our founding fathers, because understanding the heterogeneous nature of Nigeria, so we have to go for a federation whereby we have to have people from different groups, but at least even during the regional time, it was one of the concept of regionalism, because if you see the way the regions were grouped, there were some kind of even ethnic affinities amongst people. Despite that, you even have people that were not the same, just to make sure that people who are within those systems will be able to run their own things and also live within the federation again as a single country. However, over the years, that hasn't actually worked. That's why today we hear things like fiscal federalism, allowing, because from the earlier mentioned Decree 34, which was the unitary decree that ended regionalism. Now, under military rule, it was a unitary system of government and Nigerian practice. It was unitary, whereby that command and control straight from the head of states across every part of the country. Now, when we returned to democracy in 1999, you found out that, that unitary mentality continued in the system. Hence, you can see it even within the constitution, where you have a lot of things going to the federal government as control, especially the issue of land use decree and the issue of controlling the resources found in states. All the resources found in the lands, belong to the federal government. That's why the issue of solid mineral, the issue of oil. But in the true federal state, we have to practice true federalism, true fiscal federalism, allowing those states to control their resources and then put the resources together to run the federal government. That gives the state a sense of belonging. That's why today everybody wants to become a president of Nigeria. Everybody wants to become a senator of the Federal Republic, because everything that has to do with the federal is juicy. But if we now devolve power to the states, that's the one that's the first thing we should be talking about, even before talking about creating states. We should talk about devolution of power, fiscal federalism. Let the states control the resources. Today you give 30% derivation to oil producing states. What now happens? Nothing happens, even with the oil, even with the derivation fund, 13% going on, even though they are asking for more. But even the 30%, what is going with it? So you allow the state to run, and then they should repeal the land use decree of 1978. Repeal it, and allow and let us have real devolution of power in the country. Then the real federation will not come out. You will see people. But as far as the federal government has control over the resources of the country, especially the main resource, which is the oil and solid, because even up to now, solid minerals still belong to the government. That's why the fact that some state government have started to appropriate this for themselves and everything. But at least based on the extant laws, this government still has control over national resources. There was the time we even had issues between the government who has control among the littoral states, the states that are on the coastal part of the country, who had the control. How many nautical miles outside the coast will you say the federal government has power and everything?
Yes.
It becomes that, it becomes an issue. The dichotomy become an issue.
Now,
the offshore and onshore dichotomy.
We're winding down, Johnny. Let me ask you, from listening to you, I can hear the centrality of your argument on 2 or 3 pillars. One of them is that you're arguing that we don't, because of the paucity of funds, it's not possible to create additional states. And you also talked about viability of those states in terms of sustainability. So what are your expectations? The agitations will continue. We know our politicians, they are unrelenting, with regards to what they want. What are your expectations?
Good governance will solve these problems.
Okay.
People agitate because they feel that they are not part of what is going on.
That's right.
If you are giving what is due to you, you won't agitate. Even within your family, if you are giving what is due to you, you won't agitate. So Nigerians are agitating because they are not getting what they are supposed to get from government. And we should also change our structure and become true federal states, as the name goes. This garb of unitary statehood that we practice now in the name of democracy, let it be totally discarded. And we can do so by repealing some of these things. Like, I know that it's based on some of the laws that the president, both the former president Buhari signed and the current president Tinubu signed. There are some items that are now being moved to the state or being moved to the concurrently, so the federal government and the state will share this responsibility. But beyond that, we should have a total fiscal federalism where states can control their resources, and then let us have good governance. I think these agitations will stop, or at least will reduce to the barest minimum.
Okay. That's the size of our package this afternoon on the Polity. You agree with me that it's been entertaining, incisive, and informative. I thank our numerous scholars that call in to share their views with us. And I must profoundly thank John Okoro for finding time to come. John, thank you very much.
Thank you, Maucauley.
Polity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Maucauley Hunohashi. On behalf of Ruben Okala and the entire production team, is bye-bye for now, and see you next time.